If you're someone that struggles with guilt and shame, you already know that that can compound. Sometimes it's not just the guilt and shame that you feel at the moment that you fail the commitment. If you're not careful, the guilt and shame will follow you. You'll carry it with you into every other situation. Because as ET and them always say, the way you do one thing is how you do one thing is how you do everything. That guilt and shame will carry forward. So the one way to cut that cord, remember we're speaking on the negative side of the coin, right? So the one way to cut the cord and discontinue carrying that stuff is to remember action is the antidote. Happy Wednesday, my winners and goal getters. Welcome back to the Getting the Win Show. I am your host, Mellissa T, the Procrastination Bully. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And if this is your first time, welcome to the show. We are in the thick of it in season 3. So shout out to you for checking this out. Today, I'm going to cover the subject of overcoming guilt and shame as it relates to procrastination. Because let's be real. If you're someone that is a recovering procrastinator, someone who chronically procrastinates, you're likely well familiar with guilt and shame. Because one of the things that we as chronic procrastinators tend to do, I call myself a recovering procrastinator, something that chronic procrastinators tend to do is be really hard on ourselves when we don't keep our commitments. So today I'm going to go over what you need to know to break that cycle and to push through and get your luxury item done. Okay. So the first part, I'm going to address this from two sides. The one side of the coin is the negative side. And then the other side is the productive side, the action steps you need to do to go forward and make the progress you need to make. Okay. So first, let's talk about this negative side. All right. You know that feeling when you've either made a promise to somebody or a promise to yourself. And then the time comes and then you back out. Or you ghost. You just don't say anything. You don't show up. You just ghost. And then you start kicking yourself. Like, man, you know better than that. I got to do better. Like, oh man, coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? Like, you know that feeling. You get the pit in your stomach and your mind starts to remind you of the commitment you did not keep. Just over and over again. And then you start to spiral. Speaking from experience. Here is the 4-word solution I want you to carry with you for the rest of your life. Action is the antidote. Period. Those are the 4 words you need to carry going forward for the rest of your life. As you might know, if you've seen previous episodes of the show, I'm a person of faith. I'm a Christian. And that was something that God told me directly. Action is the antidote. Period. There's nothing else. And it's absolutely true. Like when you take an action, when you make a decision and follow through with the decision, you feel better. Like it literally cancels out whatever ill feeling you had going on in your head. Whatever spirals you were doing, it cancels it out. It cancels it out. Action is the antidote. If you're someone that struggles with guilt and shame, you already know that that can compound. Sometimes it's not just the guilt and shame that you feel at the moment that you failed the commitment. If you're not careful, the guilt and shame will follow you. You'll carry it with you into every other situation. Because as ET and them always say, the way you do one thing is how you do one thing is how you do everything. That guilt and shame will carry forward. So the one way to cut that cord, remember we're speaking on the negative side of the coin, right? So the one way to cut the cord and discontinue carrying that stuff is to remember action is the antidote. Action is the antidote. If there's a commitment coming up that you're considering canceling, action is the antidote. Because even that feeling where you've made the commitment and you're getting close to it and you're like, dang, should I really do this? You know that feeling, right? You get, again, that sort of pit in your stomach when you remember the commitment. You're like, oh man, like this is due in 2 days. Or, oh man, like I have this engagement that I promised to show up at, you know, it's coming up in 3 days. Whatever the case may be, when you hear that reminder in your mind, you feel the pit in your stomach and you're like, man, do I really want to do this? And you start to second guess yourself. Action is the antidote. Action gets rid of the pit in your stomach. It gets rid of it. So if you check out my previous episode, I talked about the discomfort that comes up when we're tempted to be distracted, right? When we're tempted to break our commitment. There's a certain buildup of discomfort that we feel. That's that pit in your stomach. Action is the antidote to that pit in your stomach. So if it's something that you've committed to that is connected to someone you care about, by all means, keep the commitment. If that person is important enough to you, if that person is a big enough why for you to maintain the commitment, then keep it. Take the action, go forward with it. Because addressing this issue is very similar to addressing fear. A lot of the times when we're fearful of something, it'll be big in our head. But if we microdose our exposure to the thing that we're afraid of, aka action, it's the antidote. And it gradually shrinks the discomfort that we would feel that's associated to the thing we're afraid of. Perfect example. I had for the longest time a fear of dogs. This ties back to a trauma when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And I was within the proximity of our home that we lived in Brooklyn, my family. And we were playing on one of the side streets to the building. And somebody had let their Rottweiler loose for whatever reason. I don't know. And it was at that point that I learned the hard way not to run in the presence of a dog. Now, in my defense, I was playing with my brother. I was playing with my older brother. So I knew nothing of that rule. Didn't know that was a thing. Barely knew the dog was there until the dog started running after me. So my brother was able to get me around the corner and away from the dog. Somehow, some way, the dog owner, I forget how that whole thing resolved. It was a blur for me after that. I just remember being with my brother and then ending up safely in our house, right? But because of that incident when I was a child, I developed a very strong fear of dogs into my adult life. Like I used to avoid them. The very sound of their bark used to scare me. Once I became an adult, enlisted in the Navy and was serving in Naples, Italy. So this is 2002 to 2004. So at this point, I'm like 20, 19, around that point. Stationed in Naples, Italy, I got to meet fellow sailors who lived on base and they had pets because the naval base in Naples, Italy allowed active duty service members to own pets. And it was being in the presence of those friends and meeting their dogs. I used to be terrified at first, but again, to what I said, microdosing my exposure to that fear. After enough exposure to their dogs, because of course their dogs are well trained, right? And fortunately, I had friends that were responsible pet owners. They were close enough to their pets if they let them loose. But my point is, because of the microdosing, my fear drastically reduced to the point that now I'm fine. Like at this point in my life, I'm fine. If a dog approaches me, I'm good. And I can kind of tell now a dog's body language. So I can tell whether or not they're like not feeling me or if they're super playful and excited and they want to jump on me to explore. Like dogs that are really playful, they'll jump and they'll like smell your feed and whatever. They want to explore you. They want to know who you are, whatever. So I've gotten used to that. So that's the difference. Microdosing. So action is the antidote for that thing that you feel, that thing that you're feeling a pit in your stomach for, that you're considering procrastinating on or considering dropping. You can prevent the guilt and shame in the first place by keeping the commitment and simply taking the action. Because once you're in the action, that gritty feeling goes away. It goes away. Much in the same way that folks who experience stage fright or experience that bit of nervousness before going on stage or before speaking in front of people, whether that's on a stage, just a small group, whatever the case may be, once the speaking begins, once they take the action, that's the antidote. Eventually the bubbling in their gut eventually goes away. And you're listening to somebody that experiences that, not stage fright. I don't have that. Thank goodness. And that's no shade to you if you experience that. But what I do experience is that bubbling in my stomach. I get the butterflies before I get up in front of people. And I've learned, courtesy of Mel Robbins, shout out to her. She's not the only one that discusses this, but she was the first person I heard say it. But she basically just switched to two words. Nervousness and excitement are literally the exact same thing in our bodies, physiologically speaking. It's simply a heightened state of being. Your senses are keener, you're sweating a little bit, your temperature is higher, your body temperature is higher, you feel the butterflies in your stomach. You can either say you're nervous, which is anticipation of something negative, it's anticipation of a negative outcome, or you can say you're excited, which is anticipation of a positive outcome. So I just prefer to say I'm excited, which technically I am. Like if I'm going before a small group of people, a large group of people, if I'm on a stage, right before a virtual workshop, same thing. But for me, it's exciting because I know there's a positive outcome. I'm about to share information that everybody that's listening is going to benefit from. And I absolutely love, as a grounds crew, I love being the conduit through which that information passes to them. I love doing this show. I love being the conduit through which helpful information passes to you. So how do we address the negative side of the coin? Action is the antidote. Just tell yourself that. Whenever you feel the temptation to reconsider, to change your mind, to ghost, to break your commitment, action is the antidote. Tell yourself that. Action is the antidote. And remember, we talked in a previous episode about, like making sure to keep your commitments, especially when you have a proper why. Remember that tool I told you guys about with your phone? In terms of picking someone as a why instead of a reason, a thing, like a statement. Picking a person as your why and putting their picture on your wallpaper screen on your phone. And then imagining that you have to report to that person at the end of the day if you don't keep your commitments. Like, you were not a priority today. Do you really want to have to say that to the person? That's not a good feeling, is it? And if anything, that contributes to the guilt and shame. So that's number one in addressing that negative side of the coin, the guilt and the shame. Number two, you do have the right to be human. Let me say that. And it might sound like I'm speaking on opposite sides of my mouth. I'm not. Here's what I mean. One of the things that I've discovered, that I've learned within the last year even, is many of the habits that lead us to procrastinate, emotionally speaking, come from deeply rooted traumas, or they're habits that were taught years upon years ago, deeply rooted habits, deeply rooted emotional responses, deeply rooted ways to self-medicate, to self-distract. So when I say you have the right to be human, that's what I'm talking about. Just remember that as you embark on this journey to beat procrastination and become a procrastination bully yourself, you're battling deep-seated habits. So just remember to be kind to yourself in this process of transformation, because you are in a process of transformation. If you've made the decision to take this journey and become a procrastination bully yourself, it's going to be a journey. It's going to be a process of transformation. So be kind to yourself in the process. Now, feel free to go back in the vault if you need to. We are in season 3, so feel free to go back in the vault and watch some of those previous episodes as it relates to some of the more emotional topics that I've discussed in terms of emotional intelligence or mental health or behavior modification. I've spoken with some amazing people on those topics. But just remember that 1, action is the antidote, but 2, just remember you are human and you have the right to be human. So be kind to yourself. If you didn't keep the commitment this time, okay. Be honest with yourself and tell yourself, okay, that sucked. Like I don't like the fact that I didn't keep that commitment. However, I'm going to commit to not repeating this. This is not a behavior that I'll repeat. I am committing to doing better. Here's what we tend to do with the guilt and shame spiral. We'll tend to say, I should do better, or I need to do better, right? Does that sound familiar? Or man, I shouldn't have done that, right? The healthier thing to say is, I commit to doing better. Now you might be asking, well, if I just made a commitment and broke it, well, it makes you think I'm gonna keep my commitment to do better. This is the thing. I don't know the statistic, the actual number. I got this from Joyce Meyer, but we are far more likely to believe what we say about ourselves and to ourselves than what we hear other people say about us. So if you tell yourself, I commit to doing this, you're more likely to keep the commitment, especially when it's geared towards something you want. So now we're transitioning into the flip side of this in terms of what you need to do to go forward and move the needle. So back here, in terms of facing what we didn't like, in terms of the guilt and shame, 1, action is the antidote. That's how you can kill the guilt and shame. Action is the antidote, whether that's guilt over having not kept the commitment or the pit in your stomach you're feeling towards a commitment that's coming up. Action is the antidote. Number 2, you are and have the right to be human. So be kind to yourself. Now, here are the prescriptive actions. Here's how you can move the needle. Number 1, whatever goals or processes that you're in, whatever the commitment is that you want to keep, but don't want to keep, if that makes sense. The commitment you've made, but you may second guess keeping, create an immediate reward of some kind, whether that's something as small as your favorite beverage, whatever that is, non-alcoholic preferably. We want to keep you like clear-minded, right? But if coffee is your thing, by all means, get yourself a latte or something, whatever that beverage is, whatever your favorite beverage of choice is, whatever your favorite treat of choice is, whatever your favorite snack of choice is. It could be something as simple as that. Or if it's clothing, you know what I mean? And it's something you've had your eye on for a while and you've been putting it off, set that thing as your reward. So that when you do the thing, you get that sense of gratification. Like, good job. There's a old saying that I've heard my parents say that says encouragement sweetens labor. Like, that's what that is. It's that immediate reward. So set it up so you have an immediate reward, something small. It can even be something free. It can be something as simple as praise. You can look in the mirror and tell yourself, good job. You kept your commitment. That's how you're supposed to do it. Excellent work. You know what I mean? Whatever that self-talk needs to be to serve you. But make sure you do that because, again, you're more likely to believe what you say about yourself than what you hear other people say about you. So speak that positive and empowering stuff over yourself when you execute. Let that be your reward. Insert reward here. I'm giving examples, but insert reward here. Okay. Now, the next thing to note in terms of moving the needle, this goes back to what I talked about last episode, but have social proof on hand, if applicable. Whatever that commitment is that you want to keep, whatever your goal is that you want to achieve, whatever your luxury item is that you've been sitting on and you're now picking up again for the first time in a long time. Go find examples of success stories. That's your social proof. Show yourself and create memories for yourself of the way it looks when it works. That way, as I mentioned last episode, your hippocampus, which is your memory, will work in tandem with your prefrontal cortex. That's the part that processes information and is logical, right? It takes in new information and is logical. Those two will work together to help feed you and fuel you forward. So create a reward, an immediate reward, and social proof. Those are your two so far. The third one, and this is with any coach that you're dealing with as it relates to productivity or transformation, is log your progress tracking. So I'm going to recap real quick on this positive side to move the needle. Have a immediate reward, have social proof, success stories, right? And then 3, progress tracking. Whether you are somebody that is good with writing your progress in, maybe you're somebody that doesn't mind logging it by hand. If you're somebody that prefers to type it, or there are plenty of apps for it. But when it comes to transformation, tracking your progress is going to be key. Because our mind, the human mind, loves to see progression. It loves to see growth. It loves to see change. And in fact, even if you're at the top of your game at something, if all you remain is at the top of your game and nothing changes, you actually start to become demoralized. You start getting deflated because now you're seeing that you're no longer changing and the rest of the world is. Because time moves ever forward, right? Time moves ever forward. So track your progress, whether that's by way of journaling. You heard me talk about that in a previous episode. If not, feel free to go back. I want to say 2 episodes. I talked about it there. But having a journal, and having that journal is going to be clutch, not only for progress tracking, but this goes back to something I previously discussed as well, which is gratitude. This is something else that will counteract the guilt and shame. When you log the things that you are grateful for, particularly the things that you're grateful for that money can't buy. Shout out to Lewis House for that one. He's the one I learned that one from. But when you write down all the things about yourself and in your life that money can't buy, that you're grateful for, there's no room for guilt and shame at all. There's no room for it, because you're going to be too focused on the stuff that's good in your life than your shortcomings. So immediate rewards, create immediate rewards, have social proof, have examples of the thing when it's working successfully. And number 3, progress tracking. That bonus one is gratitude. Logging your gratitude, writing down the things you're grateful for every single day. If that means you may have to get up a little earlier to do it or stay up a little later before you go to sleep to do it though. Do it. That one's not an option. That one's an instruction. Do that. Practice gratitude. Because again, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if you're approaching life from a place of gratitude, You're going to approach all of your decision making from a place of gratitude. You're going to approach your relationships from a place of gratitude. Your mind is going to be more open to opportunities than the mistakes. It's not that you won't notice the mistakes, but you'll more readily notice the opportunities. And as a matter of fact, you'll sooner see the mistakes as areas of opportunity in your life. Like, okay, that didn't go so well, but here's how I can improve going forward. As opposed to simply saying, well, that sucked, period. That's not healthy, right? Like leaving the sentence with, well, that sucked, that doesn't help you. That won't serve you. If anything, that'll drag you down and you'll, again, start to spiral. So I'm going to give a cautionary tale as it relates to this, just so you can know what this process looks like. From 2017 to 2019, I was a high functioning, depressed person, but to the point where I didn't even know that I was depressed. It took my dearest mother confronting me because she was starting to notice certain habits that were kind of flags. So she started asking more frequently, like, are you okay? And at the time, I was so emotionally numb that I could only tell her, yeah, why? Like facial expression at all. Yeah, why? And she said, you're starting to show signs of depression. Like you're not venturing out of your room nearly as often. When you are in your room, your blinds are shut. Like you're far less social than you used to be. What's going on? Bing. The light bulb came on. So here's how that looks from the inside of the mind of a person that is high functioning depressed. For me, it was coming from carrying guilt and shame on the job. Because again, y'all, if you've watched previous episodes, you know that I'm someone who's methodical in terms of my pace. I'm not a fast moving person. I'm someone who's very methodical. I'm detail oriented. I do research. And quite frankly, just in general, just in speed, I'm slower than, you know what I mean, than someone who is type A. And that's okay. I've come to realize that that's actually okay. That's the way I'm wired, that there's nothing wrong with me. At that time, I thought something was wrong with me. So from within my head, I was creating chronic stress in my body because I would ask myself, what's wrong with me? If I missed a deadline, if something didn't work out for my team, it was that. It was, dang, what's wrong with me? Or coulda, shoulda, woulda. Like, man, I should have gotten this done. I should have done this 2 days prior. I should have done this a week ago. I should have called that person, but I didn't. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. And I used to run down the full laundry list of all the things that's wrong with me. Why? Because that was the question I asked. And the mind is a problem-solving mechanism. If you ask it a question, it's gonna find an answer for you, even if the question is unhealthy. I'm gonna say that again. The mind is a problem-solving mechanism. So based on the question you ask, whatever question you ask, it's going to find the answer for you, even if the question is unhealthy. So be careful of the questions you're asking yourself. Because I kept feeding myself that question, I kept finding answers. I kept seeing what was wrong with me. I was too slow. I didn't know enough about a topic. I was insecure. Insert negative answer here. I was filling in all the negative blanks. And because of that, and because I'm someone who greatly values affirmation, and I was feeding myself the exact opposite, that led to chronic stress in my body and led to many health issues, some of which have manifest themselves as of 2024. That was 2017. So Action is the antidote. It was during that time period, the 2017 to 2019. It was during that time period that God gave me that. Action is the antidote. Whenever I would start to feel that pit in my stomach because I didn't feel like doing something, that was how he fueled me forward. Action is the antidote, Mellissa. Do the thing. And then once I understood the concept of approaching things from a space of gratitude and logging that, like journaling, I started doing that, and that made a difference. And the third example was, and this is where I really saw the breakthrough. I tried Lisa Nichols' I See You exercise, or the mirror exercise, where, and by all means use this, you know what I'm saying? Like, she would give it to you, I'm giving it to you. Because she used it in her own life to break out of her own depression after coming out of a domestic violence relationship. But what she did was she looked in a mirror and spoke 3 different sentences with 7 endings for each sentence. So the first sentence is the gratitude one. Insert your name. I'm going to say mine. Mellissa, I'm proud that you. So put your name there. I'm proud that you. And name 7 things to celebrate yourself for. That's the gratitude thing. That's the gratitude thing. And then the second sentence, in my case, Mellissa, I forgive you for. Now, this is going to play directly into defeating the guilt and shame that you felt in terms of the things you've procrastinated on, or the negative self-image you have of yourself because you haven't kept your word. So insert your name, I forgive you for. Because again, what you hear yourself say about you, you're more likely to believe than what other people say about you. So you're looking yourself in the mirror and saying this out loud. So you're hearing yourself say it in your outer ear. Okay. So sentence number 1, I'm proud that you. Sentence number 2, I forgive you for. Sentence number 3, I commit to you that. So going back to what I said, the I commit to you, or I commit that this will not be repeated. I commit to you that I will be more productive. I commit to you that I will be more proactive. So that's a bonus exercise there. And prayerfully that helps you. So recap here too on this side, create immediate reward, because dopamine is the neurotransmitter that has to do with reward, desires, and cravings. So if we're talking procrastination, dopamine will always be in the conversation, because that's the neurotransmitter that we're dealing with the whole time. When you're tempted to do that distracting thing, it's the dopamine, right? You heard me say that in the last episode. It's the dopamine release that you get from that distracting thing that makes you want to do that. And the thing that you have to, the thing you want to do, the goal you want to complete is going to take smaller steps. So the level of dopamine you're going to experience is far smaller. So you have to microdose, which is why creating immediate reward is so important. So be sure to create immediate reward for each small step, whether that's you giving yourself a few minutes to enjoy your favorite web, whatever. If you're somebody that, reads web comics, or if you're somebody that does a lot of streaming, you watch your favorite shows on streaming, I'll allow myself 1 episode, whatever the case may be. Create immediate reward per step. You're microdosing, okay? Per step. 2, studying the success stories, right? Social proof. You heard me talk about that last episode. And 3, progress tracking, whether that's by hand, by a digital chart on your computer, or with an app. But progress tracking. An example of the progress tracking that I can give you is E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher's More in 2024 challenge. If you guys tuned in season 2, I had the honor of talking with E.T. during the More in 2024 challenge. That was back in February of this year. And yeah, there were thousands of people that took that challenge and sung the praises of how life-changing the More in 2024 challenge was. You know why that is? One, consistency, but two, progress tracking. ET had a chart for everybody to download during the More in 2024 challenge so that whatever commitments you wrote down in it, you had to track it every single day. And the More in 2024 challenge was a daily challenge that you had to listen into at 7 a.m. Eastern time every single morning. It was all about building consistency, flexing the muscle of consistency. And so, yeah, progress tracking, that's going to be a game changer for you. Whatever that commitment is, track it. If you don't feel like doing it, if you're someone who's not detail oriented, you're someone who moves very fast, you have very, alpha personality, or perhaps you're all about vision and you just want to move forward and that feels like a ball and chain for you, that is why an accountability partner is going to be helpful. Because even if you don't feel like doing it, have that other person doing it. Ask that other person if they can help you track your progress and keep you accountable. You need to be present. I want to close with this last thing. I've said this in my workshop, but I want to make sure it's clear here on the show as well so you can catch it. Get clear on what you want. Get clear on what you want. Because one, that's going to determine how you go forward, how you reverse engineer that desire to be able to accomplish it. But two, it'll inform all of your decisions too. In terms of all the other opportunities that come your way, it'll inform your decision making. So get clear on what you want. Because not only is that important, it's also important to get clear on what you want. Because when you're phrasing your goal or your commitment, when you're microdosing, you want to phrase things from a place of what you want to receive, not the negative side effect if you don't complete it. That's how the human mind works. When you're trying to persuade anybody else, sure, it's important to tell people what they'll experience if they don't do the thing, right? Like if you're in sales, you likely know this. It's important to let people know what they're sacrificing if they don't make the decision, right? But in terms of making a commitment, it's important to also let the person know what happens when the thing is acquired, what they'll get when they get the thing. And it's important for you to do that for yourself too, in terms of microdosing towards your goal. Think of it from a place of what you'll receive when you complete the thing, which is why that social proof is so important, studying what the thing looks like when it's successful. Come at it from a place of what you'll experience, what you'll receive when it's completed, even if it's something as simple as relief. Because at the end of the day, that's all procrastination is. It is us desiring relief. Now, when we choose to procrastinate, the relief is only temporary. The benefit of keeping the commitment is that the relief from that particular task is permanent because it's completed. So that's a much better payoff than to do the distraction that's going to suck up 2 hours of our time. Does that make sense? So be clear on what you want. Revisit your luxury item and ask yourself that question. Is this what you want? Is this what I really, really want? And if it's not, explore why. What changed to change your view on the thing? Is it something with the economy? Is it financial? Is it emotional? Did you experience a recent trauma or a recent loss? Is it circumstantial? Maybe right now you literally don't have time. Maybe you're in a season where you're committed to something else, like a 9-to-5 or maybe 2 9-to-5s, given how the economy is looking right now. Sometimes 2 9-to-5s and like a 9-to-12 or something. You know what I mean? Like 2 full-times and a part-time or something. But get clear though. Get clear on what you want. Get clear on whether or not you still want that luxury item. Be honest about it. And then talk to the people around you. Talk to the people closest to you. If you are experiencing doubt, like that latter situation where you ask yourself if you really want to do this and the answer is no longer a full yes, find out why, like within yourself, find out what's going on. But then also talk to the people you trust, even if it's a person, even if it's just one person. Talk to that person you trust and get their feedback on how they view your connection with that luxury item. If they feel that it's a good fit for you, if maybe perhaps you're correct, it's a season thing, and maybe just focus on what you're doing in this season and get back to it another time. Either way, get clear though. Don't be sitting on that luxury item like saying like, I don't fully want to do this anymore. Like, get clear on why. That way you have a clear yes or no. Because again, what I said 2 episodes ago, if your values are fluid, so is your decision making. So we want to get clear, yes or no. All right. So quick recap. If you're struggling with guilt and shame as it relates to procrastination, you're kicking yourself, you're abusing yourself with that self-talk. Trust me, my self-talk used to be brutal. It used to be brutal. Like, these were words I would never say out loud to anybody else. So if you want to kick that, 1, action is the antidote. 2, you are and have the right to be human. Okay. Over here, to move the needle now, create immediate reward, study success stories, fill your mind with what it looks like to succeed at the thing. Show yourself what it looks like when it works so that when you experience it, you'll feel the same thing. And 3, progress tracking. My bonus was practice gratitude, like journal your gratitude, especially to step the game up. Express gratitude for the things money can't buy. Things you love about yourself, things you're thankful about for yourself, and about the people around you, about your experience, about your life. And then lastly, be clear about what you want, and then phrase that goal of yours based on what you want. So if you have a fitness goal, you don't necessarily want to phrase it in the way like, oh man, like, if I don't do this, then I'll have a heart attack. No. Phrase it from what you want. I've always had the goal to be 135, or insert weight here. I've always had the goal to be 150. If I start jogging, I'll be 1 step closer every single day to 150. If I replace these things out of my diet with these things that I know will serve my body, I'll be 1 step closer to 150. Rephrase your goal based on the thing that you want, the result that you want. Or rephrase your efforts. Rephrase your efforts based on what you want. And you're far more likely to do them. Because again, dopamine is connected to desires and cravings. Okay? Rewards, desires, and cravings. So phrase your process towards the reward so that you can experience the dopamine hit, even if it's as simple as relief from permanently completing the thing, not temporary distraction. So hope this episode was helpful for you. By all means, be sure to subscribe on YouTube if you're tuning in over there. You can subscribe at Getting the Win. You can also follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, and Threads at Getting the Win Show. All right. In the meantime, have a great and productive rest of your Wednesday and a great and productive rest of your week. Peace.